Islam Makhachev is the greatest mixed martial artist of all time. And I had been saying it prior to this fight. After he moved up to 170 pounds, dominated Jack Della Maddalena to win the welterweight title, I had said that Islam is the greatest fighter ever. And then for him to go out here and beat Ian Machado Garry, I think it just solidifies it. He was tied with Anderson Silva, 16-fight win streak in the UFC, and he just shattered the record. He now holds the record with 17 straight UFC wins. That is unbelievable. And the way that the fight game is nowadays, that's going to be incredibly hard to break. And to go out here and beat a fighter as good as Ian Machado Garry, it just speaks to the level that Islam is at. So now we got to talk about the main event. Whether I thought it was entertaining or not, what my expectations were coming into this fight, and really what we saw in the octagon, because honestly, nothing surprised me at all. And I got to pat myself on the back. Be humble, brother. Be humble. If you guys watch my breakdown, did the fight not play out exactly how we talked about it? So overall, I thought this card was incredible. This was one of those cards after I saw our guy Orolbai go down to a 39-year-old Jeremiah Wells. I tweeted out, it's just going to be that kind of night, isn't it? I just knew as soon as that happened, we're about to see a whole bunch of upsets. And I'm is the co-main event going to go south? Is the main event going to go? It just felt like I was on the edge of my seat the whole night because it felt like one of those cards. What can go wrong in terms of predictions is going to go wrong. And we did okay. I think we did 7-5, which isn't great, but it was one of those cards. So we survived as Islam in a way, kind of, I don't want to say survived, but got past Ian Machado Garry. And what I thought was maybe the toughest test of his career. I still think that the first Volkanovski fight was the toughest, but this one was right there, man. So we'll talk about the main event. Jalin Turner going out there, knocking out Kaue Fernandes. I'm so happy for Jalin Turner, man. So we got a lot to discuss. Mackenzie Dern going out there and dominating Gillian Robertson. So many upsets. We got a lot to discuss, man. But let's talk about the main event because, look, if your expectations coming into this fight were that this was going to be some sort of glory kickboxing fight for 25 minutes, we were just going to get this crazy barn burner on the feet for 25, then I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. You're an idiot, right? We knew coming into this fight that this was going to be a slow-paced, high-thinking man's methodical, you go, I go, tit-for-tat, high-level chess match to where not a whole lot was really going to happen. That was my, the way that I was looking at this fight. So I wasn't coming into this so excited because I'm this is going to be, whoa, man, BMF banger, watch out. No, I knew that I knew that we had the greatest of all time versus the best guy at 170 pounds in Ian Machado Garry, who has wins over Michael Venom Page and Carlos Pratas, the only guy to beat those two dudes in the UFC, by the way, who's been looking incredible and has been rapidly improving his game and has taken so many strides over the past couple years since coming into the UFC. So the reality is Islam Makhachev did what he had to do to win this fight. The levels on the ground were obviously enough for him to win, but they were not leaps and bounds above what I kind of thought it might be. I thought that Islam was going to be able to get Ian Machado Garry down, especially early in moments. I thought he would have a lot of control. I thought he would get Ian, flattened out on his back and, be able to get to the takedowns rather easily, especially early. I expected as the fight would start to play out that it would get more difficult. But man, Islam really was struggling to get Ian down. And the minute I saw Damian Maia walking out in the corner, I know that Ian's been working with Damian Maia, but it was one of those reminders to where I just saw Damian Maia. He's one of those guys where when you see him, you're like, man, that's a legend right there. And you start to kind of go, wait a minute. Man, I feel like they got some potions cooking up here for Islam, man. You see Damian Maia, that legend walking in, how good of a grappler he is. Right? And Ian Machado Garry was so good in this fight, man. Defending against Islam's grappling is not easy to do. We've really only seen one person do it, and that was Volkanovski. Pretty much, right? For the most part. since Islam's been in his prime. Then for Ian Garry to go out there, and Islam actually was able to get to the back of the 5th round, which just shows the grit and heart that Islam brings to the table, digging deep, being able to he knew, if I didn't know what the scorecards were going to be, man. I was like, I could see a world where, Islam's clearly winning here. I could see something where it gets a little dicey in the end. I mean, I had it in real time, at least 3-2 Islam. That's the way that I looked at it. Obviously, I had Islam winning, but I thought there were some very competitive rounds in there to where Ian Garry was landing some good shots. He was staying busy up against the fence, landing some pitter-patter shots here and there when Islam was not able to get the takedowns and not able to keep him down. We saw Garry do a great job working back to his feet and just sticking Islam to the body, man. Was ripping some nasty, boxing combos. A lot of it was with the kicks, and that oblique kick is nasty. We didn't see a whole lot of it in this fight, but he used it in moments, and that's enough to kind of discourage some of that forward momentum of Islam. The way that Islam shoots that single out in space and the way that he's able to get a hold of you, man, I don't think he gets enough credit for how fast that is, right? When we talk about the athletic shots in MMA, when it comes to wrestling shots, like the guy that clearly stands out is Khamzat Chimaev because, he's got the best double leg in the UFC. But Islam's single, man, and the way that he was able to get to Garry, it was dang impressive. And Garry was doing a great job defending. Especially early. And then kind of made a mistake late. Islam was able to get to the back, but that was just the willpower that Islam brings to the table, man. And that's just something that makes you a fantastic fighter and makes you the greatest ever, is you never give up on yourself, despite Garry landing some really good shots. Garry was ripping to the body well, and you could see Garry growing in confidence. And I'm like, man. And when, when Islam landed that high kick, which we talked about that, right? I was telling you guys about that, how Garry drops, when he kind of fades to the right and extends his arms. He's got some of that tall man defense when he exits, and Islam capitalized on that, landed a brutal high kick. I think that was like the 2nd round where he dropped him and almost knocked him out. And I'm like, Islam better hop on a submission, man, because Gary's one of these guys that if you don't put him away, he will start to battle back. We saw that in the Shavkat fight. He's not going to give up on himself. And Gary's got a really good gas tank. Right, so we saw him battle back, but man, Islam, people were saying that this was some boring, smudge fest, this and that. The one that had the more action-packed moments, Islam almost KO'd Garry with a head kick and then was smothering him on the ground. I thought Islam was going to submit him for sure at that moment because I'm like, oh, Gary's going to be shaking the cobwebs, try to shake off the cobwebs. He's going to be scrambling. He's going to make a mistake. You saw Islam kind of looking to get into the front headlock position, but then Ian was doing a good job of kind of holding the arm, defending. So he escaped round 2, and then I'm like, oh, this is going to get really interesting because Islam used a lot of energy in those first 2 rounds. But this was just one of those performances where just Islam does what he does, man. He's able to stay relatively safe on the feet. Now, Garry did batter him up quite a bit on the feet, which I anticipated because he was the longer, rangier fighter, and Ian Garry's a super high-level striker. Can fight very well moving forward, can fight very well moving backwards. And it's kind of interesting because we didn't see a lot of movement from Garry in this fight, actually, right? Not a ton of lateral movement. He was kind of just standing his ground, which I feel like a lot of that was, strategic. Being like, I'm going to hold the center. You're not going to push me back to the fence. I'm not just going to be on my bike circling the whole time to where you can kind of walk me in and explode and push me back into the fence. So that was a smart approach, I feel, from Garry. But by the same token, I feel like he took away some of his ability to cut some of those angles and land some of those sneaky shots because the head kicks, the kicks to the body were nasty, and then that's how he, then sets up to go upstairs. But Islam was very prepared for it. Was very defensively responsible. And look, you can say what you want about Islam on the feet. I think he's very good on the feet. Now, do I think he's better, like if it's a straight kickboxing fight to where there's no grappling to worry about? Like, I think that still favors Garry. But the reality is Islam was doing such a great job of, you saw him kind of just dipping the levels, kind of giving the idea, inching close, tapping out, the back leg. Garry was doing a good job checking, but Islam was just kind of tapping it, and then boom, eventually the high kick came upstairs. And Islam just does a good job of not overextending and getting himself out of position. And that's what we've seen in his career since getting fluked, years ago by the Pantoja doppelganger Martins, right? That was a learning opportunity for him. He doesn't overextend and really get out of position. So it's hard to catch him clean. You can land on him like Garry was, but in order to put him away, you got to walk him into something. And he does such a good job of not falling into those traps, right? And that's what we were talking about. Garry will set the bear traps. He's like, you're going to walk into this, and then boom, I'm going to get you. And Islam never allowed that to really happen, right? And on the feet, Garry was kind of getting the better of him, right? And a lot of the striking, right? Especially up against the fence, landing some of the pitter-patter shots, was landing some of the good shots at range. But the most damaging shot of the fight was that high kick by Islam, right, which is a beautiful shot. It's his best shot on the feet, in my opinion, right? We saw him knock out Volkanovski with it. You know, the way he sets it up, kind of taps at the lead leg, can rip it to the body, and then boom, just brings it up high, right? But, man, he didn't, you know, it's kind of crazy because I thought Islam would have more success with the grappling, and I know that he was able to win minutes, right? He was able to push Garry up against the octagon side, was able to get him down here and there, but he was not really able to keep Garry down and comfortably control him for a lot of this fight, and that's what was so impressive. And I figured Garry was going to have some answers, and he did. He was defending very well, getting back to the feet. He made life very, very difficult for Islam in there, man. He really, really did. And I think that between this and the first Volkanovski fight, like, these were the toughest fights of his career, for sure. You know, we're going to talk in just a minute about kind of what I think Islam should do moving forward and how I feel, with him at 170, because my reactions to watching him fight at welterweight are very different than what it was at 55, which we'll discuss that in a second. I'll explain, what I mean by that. But, Islam did what he did, man. He does what he does. He's just so good. He's so good at finding ways to win. And I know that I get it. You could sit back and say, well, this wasn't the most entertaining fight. Both of these guys are tacticians. They're high-level fighters. When you put high-level, high fight IQ guys and they have these game plans, they're going to come in and, they're going to fight strategically. And that's what both guys did. Garry landed some good shots on the feet. He defended some takedowns, was able to get back to the feet. Islam was able to push him up against the fence, land some of the knees in close, just tapping shots to stay busy. Right, and then towards the end of the fight was landing some, ground and pound as well, kind of hitting, Ian Garry, he was on his back, but kind of landing some shots around, not around the guard, but, Garry's just kind of sitting in there and he's landing some shots. So Islam, just fine. He knows how to win, man. He knows how to win in these big moments and in these big fights. And the grappling was enough to get the job done. But the reality is Garry did very, very good at stuffing the takedowns. He did a very good job. And for Islam to go out here and beat a guy like Ian Machado Garry, who I know you could say is kind of in the prime of his career, but he's still getting better. So maybe he hasn't hit like his full-blown prime yet, but he's still primed, man. He's still young in the game. He's had plenty of fights in the UFC. He's beaten really, really good opposition. As I mentioned before, the only guy to beat MVP in the UFC, the only guy to beat Carlos Prates in the UFC, and we saw what he's able to do. And I know that Gary's not the greatest knockout threat. That's not really his game, but he's still dangerous, and he's a big guy in this weight class. And he was obviously taller than Islam in there, and I think Islam's filled out well, into his frame at 170, but he started to get tired. And that's something that we really haven't seen a whole lot of from Islam in his career, really, if at all. Him starting to slow down, and that's because Garry was making him work. That's like when you watch Strickland versus Hamzat. Right? When you watched Hamzat versus DDP, it's like, oh, well, Hamzat just dominated him for 5 rounds. And it's like, well, they had no problems with the gas tank then, but in the Strickland fight, what happened? Strickland made him work. The JDM Islam fight, JDM never made Islam work. What did Garry do? He made Islam work. And we saw Garry do a lot of similar things, I think, to kind of what Strickland was doing. Never settling, constantly moving, trying to work back up. And look, all the respect in the world to Ian Machado Garry. Good sportsmanship all across the board. At the end. And look, I've always said Ian Garry, I do find him a little bit annoying, but the reality is I've always said I enjoy watching this guy fight. He's a super high-level fighter. His striking is very, very high level. You don't go out there and beat Carlos Prates predominantly striking if you're not good in that realm, right? Knocking out D-Rod the way he did, setting him up beautifully. And then for Islam now, I mean, look at the guys he's beaten, man. Look at the guys he's beaten. Volkanovski twice. And the first fight against Volk, very, very competitive. And Volkanovski, I think, is easily, without a doubt, a top 10 fighter. And I got him higher, right, than just, he's number 10. I mean, I might even be a top 5 all-time fighter. Alexander Volkanovski, and he's still going strong, about to fight Mobstar Evloev, and what that would mean for his legacy, right? So for Islam to beat him, beat Arman Sarukian, how well that's aged, right? And I think he would have beaten him in the rematch, and unfortunately Arman pulled out, so, it was Moicano, but who does that to Moicano? I know Moicano's not like an elite fighter per se, but he's got a great ground game, and Islam made him look clueless there. So all the incredible wins, beating Dustin Poirier, outboxing Poirier, submitting him late in the fight, battling adversity, moving up to 170, dominating Jack Della Maddalena. I mean, smudged him, man. And I know it wasn't the most entertaining thing, but it was complete domination. I mean, JDM had no answers, which I figured Ian Garry was not going to go out like that. Like, Ian Garry was going to have answers, and he did. And he pushed Islam. And this was the fight I anticipated. It to be rather competitive. Ian Garry to have answers, land good shots at range. Islam have to land some shots on the feet, which he did. Landed some boxing combos here and there, but really what you see from Islam on the feet, especially since coming up to welterweight, it's a lot of kicks. He kind of taps with the back leg, right? The rear leg, using that, kind of throwing it to the inside leg, just kind of touching, kind of giving you those level changes. We'll throw some boxing combos, or he tries to counter with the check hook and then ultimately try to get to the takedowns. And that's what he was able to do. He was able to win minutes. He was able to control Garry up against the fence. He was able to get him down in moments. And then towards the end of the fight, when he had to have it, in my opinion, in round 5 to make sure he was going to win, he was able to finally get to the back of Ian Garry and control him for a large majority of the round. So Islam, obviously the grappling, we knew was going to be an advantage for him coming into this fight, and it's the reason I thought he was going to win. On the feet, I thought it would be tough against Ian Garry, which is kind of what we saw outside of the head kick landing. Ian Garry was landing a lot of really good shots, but Islam's grappling, it's the best we've seen in the UFC, in my opinion, all across the board. He's good everywhere. And Ian Garry's got good judo, and he's been working with Oliveira and all those guys. He's got that tall, wiry frame. Ian Garry's a dang good fighter. He's a dang good fighter. And I've been saying, don't get fooled up, caught up in all the, well, he said this and that. Ian Garry's still a dang good fighter, man. He's a dang good fighter, and he pushed Islam. He absolutely pushed him, which is, like I said, what I anticipated. And to go out here, land takedowns, get Garry down, control him, win minutes, land some good shots on the feet. And like I said, people that are like, oh, it was boring or whatever. It's like, well, Islam dang near knocked him out, man. Like, that's pretty impressive considering what we've seen from Garry. For Islam to throw a high kick like that, a beautifully timed high kick, the way he just kind of ripped into it, it was beautiful. Beautifully set up. And almost not, that was crazy. But I thought he was going to get the finish. I was like, Gary's hurt. He's going to hop on a submission. And then when he didn't get him out of there, I'm like, man, Islam's used a lot of energy. You see him starting to breathe a little heavy. But that's the grit and the heart, man. That's something you can't teach. And shout out to Garry, man. He was in great shape. No excuses for him, as he was saying, and he came in great shape. And you could tell Garry was barely breathing. He was in great shape. He needed to open up more, in my opinion. Right? I think Garry will watch the fight back and be like, man, if I had another crack, I'd open up a little bit more here, a little bit here. And I think Islam would feel the same. He'd be like, I could have done this, I could have done that. But the reality is, Islam Makhachev, I've been saying he's the greatest of all time. Look what he's been able to do. Look at the different style of opponents that he's fought. Guys in the primes of their careers that are like at, the top of their game. Volkanovski, Ian Machado Garry. So, Jack Della Maddalena, right? And I know Prates beat up JDM, but, that's a hard 2 fights for JDM. A dominant grappler and a dominant striker, right? So, JDM's still a really good fighter. So for Islam to go out here and beat Garry, I just think it further cements, right? 17 UFC wins in a row. It's just incredible to be able to do that. Is that something we're going to see broken? I know that we were, people were like, we don't know if Anderson Silva will ever be able to, if that record will ever get broken. And I'm like, well, if someone's going to do it, it might be Khabib, Islam, and then here we are, right? Topuria, right? But Topuria lost to Gaethje. So you see what I'm saying? It's going to be very, very tough. The game is different. It's getting tougher and tougher and tougher. You can see that, especially with Islam here. I think sticking around at 170, we're going to talk about that in just a second. I think it's going to be tough for him, man, to be honest. But the reality is this is one of the biggest wins of his career. I think the Volkanovski win, the first fight, and I know Volk, he was a 45er then. He's still one of the greatest mixed martial artists of all time. That was just a pound for pound on pound for pound situation. And skill-wise, Ian Garry's a difficult puzzle to deal with. A very difficult puzzle. And we saw how competitive he was with Shavkat, and we know how good Shavkat is, right? So this was a big win for Islam, and it just further cements his legacy, He's a very good striker. He's more reserved on the feet, doesn't really try to engage in the pocket, tries to play the distance game, which I figured would be tough because Garry is going to have the distance range advantage in the matchup, right? And that's what we saw. But ultimately, Islam's grappling, it's just a step ahead. It's just a step ahead. Garry had some answers. He was doing the right stuff, getting back to the feet, making Islam work. Islam was getting tired. But as Makhachev always does, they're a smart camp. They find ways to win. That's exactly what Islam did and didn't put himself out of position where he could have got walked into a big shot and put away. So respect to both guys, man. This was a high-level fight, and that's what I expected. A slower-paced fight that wasn't going to be like super entertaining per se, but it was going to be the X's and O's, the outside foot battle and all that kind of stuff. So that's what we got here. It was a competitive fight. Garry landed some good shots. Islam with the big shot of the night with the head kick, and then being able to control Garry, push him up against the fence, neutralize him, take away some of the range, and go out here and get one of the biggest wins of his career, taking out a primed Ian Machado Garry. It's dang impressive, and I think Islam is the greatest of all time. And listen, when I was watching Islam at 155, I had like high confidence in these fights, right? With like beating Charles Oliveira and a lot of the stuff that he's done. I'm like, I had the Oliveira fight, I was worried, but a lot of the other fights, I'm like high confidence. Islam's just going to win. It was almost like we just know what's going to happen pretty much. To where since moving up to 170, right, it kind of felt like we were fooled a little bit because I expected JDM, that fight, to be a little bit more competitive. Even though I thought Islam would still win, I expected JDM to put up a little bit of a fight. That didn't happen. To where it's like, oh, are we back to kind of our 155 ways to a degree where Islam's just so much better on the ground? He's going to be able to take people down and easily win fights that way. And then we got to see that some of these big dudes that are primed and on the rise in this weight class are just probably, you're not going to just be able to hold them down for 25 minutes and blanket them. And if you just can't submit them, then you're going to be in for one hell of a night. And I feel like if Islam sticks around in this weight class, which it sounds like he's going to, I mean, I feel like at this point, he could, if he retired, I mean, the legacy is cemented, man. And to go out on a win like this against Garry would be impressive. But, I still think he can beat these guys, man. I'm just saying, it's going to get scary because Morales isn't the most technical guy in the world, but I mean, he's massive. What is he, like 230 getting down to 170? The wrestling background, crazy power. And I said that Morales to me is more of a threat than Garry in a way. Yeah, Garry more technical, the better fighter, but Morales has the ability to knock you out and put you away, which is how I think you're going to have to beat Islam, is to just finish him, right? You look at some of these guys like Bomb Fiend with nasty striking, good submissions. Sean Brady and his ground game and improved striking. Carlos Prates with his nasty striking. I mean, welterweight's loaded. There's a division. This is a division with killers everywhere, man. It's a loaded weight class. And for Islam Makhachev to go out here and beat Ian Machado Garry, I mean, I was sweating this one, man. I knew it was going to be competitive. Ian Garry, I knew he would do good at defending the takedowns, but he did even better than what I anticipated. And I knew he would be good on the feet, landing some good shots. And the reality is, these fights where it just feels like Islam's got it in the bag, I just don't know that that's the reality in this weight class against a lot of these guys. Now, to be fair, I think Ian Garry beats Michael Morales, right, outside of getting clubbed with a big overhand. Like, I think he's better than Morales. We saw him beat Prates, so MMA math for you. And Ian Garry, I thought he was the best guy in this weight class outside of the champ, Islam Makhachev. So we got best on best in the division. This was a high-level fight. Again, not the most entertaining, but my expectations were as such that we were going to see an X's and O's, you go, I go, game plan. I'm going to grapple. You're going to, I just figured that it was going to be like a tit-for-tat, slower-paced type of fight where Islam would try to neutralize Garry and the striking that he brings to the table. So overall, I enjoyed the fight in terms of the technical standpoint. And Islam goes out here and further cements himself, in my opinion, as the greatest of all time. The wins, I mean, beating a prime Oliveira as well, rocking him and submitting him. I mean, all the wins that he's had, beating Garry, beating JDM, him sticking around at 170, it's making me a lot more nervous, though, man. I'm watching these fights and I'm nervous because these guys obviously are bigger. They hit harder. Morales, who I don't think is that technical, he can club you. Right, we saw what he did to Brady. We've seen how good he is, how dangerous he can be. Prates, obviously one of the nastiest strikers in the division and in the sport, period. So, welterweight's loaded. Islam sounds like he wants to get to that 20 wins in a row. We'll see if he could do it, man. Matt, I think he's the GOAT, and he just further cemented that by taking out a super game Ian Machado Garry, who's only going to get better, and he'll be back, man. I was very impressed with what I saw from Ian Machado Garry. Respect to Garry, man. He put on a good performance. Obviously could have done a little bit more, shoulda, woulda, coulda, but I think that he should be proud of what he was able to do in there, because a lot of guys, they just get destroyed by Islam, right? Look at the JDM fight, and Garry made it a lot more interesting and made us sweat it a little bit, So good fight, technicality wise, and Islam gets it done, further cementing himself as the GOAT, in my opinion. And who we should fight next? I think Carlos Prates has earned it, right? I feel like he's earned it. Morales is not very active at all, and I know he weighed in as the backup fighter, so maybe that means that he's going to get the next title shot. And I think stylistically that's interesting, given Morales has the wrestling background. I think he throws those big looping shots to where I don't trust his gas tank in a 25-minute fight, considering how much weight he cuts, right? Will he have gas tank issues? We don't really know, because a lot of the times he's finishing people and he's only been in 15-minute fights, but over the course of 25, I feel like it could get interesting. But he throws those big winging punches to where I think Islam could easily get to the hips, but will he be able to keep him down? That's why I don't know, because I think wrestling-wise, Morales, I think he could give Islam some problems there. But I think on the feet, Islam could kind of pick at him. We've seen guys out, pick at Morales on the feet. So he's just kind of a guy that's just massive for the weight class. He's a my player, a unicorn in the division, to where he can kind of sprawl and brawl and possibly club you. And with Prates, there's obviously holes in the grappling to where if Islam could get him down, I think he could definitely put him in some danger and possibly submit him. But on the feet, I mean, what Prates brings to the table, that's a guy that Islam cannot play around with on the feet whatsoever. So I think Prates should get it based off of he's been active. Look at how he's, been rattling off these wins. Morales kind of fights once every blue moon at this point. Beating Brady, I know is very impressive, but I just feel like the active guy, like Ian Garry was, should get it. But Morales weighing in as the backup, maybe that means that he's getting it. But either way, I'm intrigued by both of those matchups. Co-main event, Mackenzie Dern versus Gillian Robertson. I mean, I don't want to sit here and be like, because listen, predicting fights is a hard thing to do. Like, I don't think people realize how hard that is, right? Like, you kind of feel like but we don't really know, right? It's MMA, anything can happen, and if we've learned anything in 2026, that really is the reality. Humble brother, right? This was just the perfect stylistic matchup for Mackenzie Dern to get a title defense, right? That was literally what I had been saying in the buildup, and it wasn't to disrespect Gillian's game, because I do think Gillian is a solid fighter, but I've just never been wowed by Robertson. I just haven't. Like, I know that she was on a nice win streak, but really, who is she beating? If we're just being honest, that's kind of what I was saying. So that's kind of why I had some questions there. She needs to get into the top position. And even if you do get into the top position, Dern is very, very good off of her back. On the feet, Robertson's going to be much slower. She doesn't really have any power to trouble Dern. So I'm like, where does she win this fight? Outside of Dern slowing down, which actually started to happen in this fight, and Robertson pouring it on her and grounding, pounding her out, or landing a big shot, or submitting her somehow. Like, that was the only way I saw Robertson winning this fight. And I didn't think that was going to happen, right? So I did think she went out there and won the 5th round, right? I thought I heard a 48-47 scorecard or something like that. I don't know where that came from. I thought it was 4-0 heading into the 5th round as I was watching in real time. The reality was Mackenzie Dern was much better on the feet, much more explosive, hit way harder, way faster, ripping kicks to the body. And ever since training with Perillo, I mean, the boxing, look how much better it's gotten. Her boxing is much sharper. Her striking has came a long way, but she does start to slow down. And obviously, she was having a lot of success grappling earlier in the fight. So I think that's something that started to slow her down. We saw Gillian start to pour it on a little bit, right, as the fight started to play out, but it was just too little too late, man. Too little too late. She needed to push a pace early to try to get Dern fatigued, right, by like that 3rd round. Dern might win the first 1 or 2, and then you start to really pour it on and Dern starts to slow down. And I feel like that would be, Gillian's path to victory. But Dern more explosive, faster on the feet, and her boxing's gotten a lot better. Her defense is still suspect, right? And let's just be honest. Zhang Wei Li, Fatima Klein, right? I believe Fatima Klein's in this weight class, right? We're talking about strawweight. Oh, casual, man. I think Fatima Klein's in this weight class, right? I thought she bounced around weight classes or whatever. She just beat Ricci, and she's been very, very impressive. I think Fatima Klein beats the brakes off of either one of these women, personally. But I was saying that this just felt like a good matchup for Dern to go out here and defend the belt. We know Dern's a big star. People are like, oh, the way she looks and this and that. And it's like, all right, man. But let's talk about the skills, too. People just act like, oh, well, the UFC's just pushing her because of the way she looks. But the reality is, obviously, but she's a very skilled fighter. Her jiu-jitsu is next level, man. She put Robertson in some bad positions where I thought she was going to be able to submit her. And she didn't, right? Good defense by Robertson, but Dern just kind of got tired from dominating the fight. That's kind of what it was winning on the feet, taking Robertson down at will, putting her on her back, keeping her there, would lose the position. Robertson would get on top for like the last minute, land some ground and pound, but that to me wasn't really enough, to take any of the rounds considering the work that Dern had basically been putting in the whole time. So this kind of went how I expected. I really thought that it would be kind of competitive in moments, but would predominantly be Mackenzie Dern being more explosive on the feet, landing the better shots, and getting the better of the exchanges in the grappling, and that's kind of what we saw in this fight. I was saying, if I was a matchmaker and I could figure out how could we get Dern a title defense, what's good for business, Gillian Robertson's on a win streak. She's got a style to where, she matches up well with Dern, but I felt like this was the perfect matchup for Dern to go out there and basically do what she did. Not a good look, getting kind of dominated in the 5th round. But I feel like a lot of that was she was content on playing guard because obviously she's got the jiu-jitsu background. She's very high level there, very comfortable being on her back and in her guard, right? I get all that, but in the 5th round of a fight that you're dominating, I get that you're tired from, putting in all that work, but not particularly a great look. And watch out, right? We don't know kind of what's going on with Zhang Wei Li. Hopefully she's back. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. And then Fatima Klein's on the rise, man. She's looking like a serious problem. So put some respect on the skills of Mackenzie Dern. I picked her to beat Virna Jandiroba. I know a lot of people were picking Virna in that fight. Mackenzie Dern's the real deal, dude. Like, I know that Klein and some of these other fighters are more dangerous, more skilled, but Beating Gillian Robertson still impressive. Robertson's very good. I just think Dern's skills have been, in a way, very underrated, and she's made a lot of improvements. Easy win for Mackenzie Dern. This fight went pretty much how I anticipated. The featured fight, Jalin Turner versus Kaue Fernandes. Man, we nailed this pick. I picked Jalin Turner by first-round knockout, and by basically the way that it happened. Now, I thought he was going to counter a low kick of Fernandes to where he would land the big shot to put him away, and it was Fernandes. He landed one good low kick, and I'm like, oh, that's not good, right? Because that had some sting on it, and you could see it kind of bothered Jalin a little bit. But Fernandes went for that little spinning attack, and then Jalin Turner just clobbered him, man, and was able to put him away. And you know what's crazy? Is I know Jalin Turner's like 6'3" and massive for the division, but usually when you get guys that are built like this and they're like, they're cutting a bunch of weight to get down to a weight class and they have this massive frame advantage, they normally like compromise their power in a way a lot of the time, right? At least that's what we see quite a bit is guys, they just crush themselves to get down and the power isn't necessarily there. They have speed and kind of the string being striking, but they don't necessarily have like crazy starching power a lot of the time, I feel, right? Jalin Turner has crazy starching power. Like he is like the frame of a welterweight. Like I could just see, I know he's got toothpick legs, but if Jalin Turner fought at 170, he would look like he belongs in that weight class. He would size mog a lot of those guys, right? And he's so dangerous, man. So dangerous, and I'm so happy for Jalin Turner. Himmy Turner with the burner, man. This is Himmy Turner now. All right, this is Jalin Himmy Turner. He's him, man. Jalin Turner, I've been saying for the longest time, you could look at the record and go, oh, well, all these losses. I thought he beat Gamrot, out-damaged him, I thought, right? I thought he beat Dan Hooker, right? Basically knocked out McConico and tried to walk away, and I feel like he was haunted by what he did to Bob Green, right? So there's some of those, when you look at the record, that doesn't paint the whole picture of the career of Jalin Turner, and the reality is, Jalin doesn't necessarily need someone in his corner being like, you need to move your feet this way and throw this and do that. Jalin Turner just needs someone to be positive to him, being like, you got this, man. You got this. You got this. You got it, Jalin. Trust yourself. Do it. You got it, Jalin. And when that happens, look what happens. Jalin Turner has always been an elite guy in this weight class. Like, I've been saying that for the longest time, and I am a huge Jalin Turner fan. It's always been this. It's been his mindset. And I know that, he cuts a lot of weight, so we see him slow down from time to time. I get that. But, I mean, look at how he beat up Dan Hooker, man. And I know the ghost of Barboza. We'll talk about Barboza, shortly here. But, I mean, Fernandes is dangerous. Nasty kicks, right? He's a guy that's on the rise, and I think he'll be back. But the reality was, man, he was leg kick spamming a bunch of guys that aren't really that good, right? Jalin Turner is an elite 155er. I said it. He's an elite 155er, 100%. On the feet, Jalin Turner can beat anybody in this division just about. He could trouble anybody in this weight class. He's got a nasty submission game as well. If Jalin Turner wants to win, there's not many guys that are going to be able to beat him. And tonight he showed up and wanted to win. And when that happens, look out. And that's what we saw from Jalin Turner. Planted a big shot on Fernandes, dropped him, followed up with some nasty ground and pound, and got him out of there. And that's what happens. Vintage Jalin Turner. Took some time away, came back, easily gets rid of Barboza in the first round. I believe it was the first round, right? And then comes out here and does what he does, essentially even like easier against a super game primed Fernandes. Amazing performance by Jalin Turner. Never a doubt. Went out there, Himmy Turner with the burner, nasty knockout, putting away a dangerous hotbox Kaue. If you know, they don't call him hotbox Kaue for nothing. Did you see how red this dude's eyes were in those photos this week going around on social media where he was like doing his media day or photo shoot stuff? That was kind of interesting and funny. So, yeah, I like Fernandes. He's good, but Jalin Turner, different level when he actually shows up and his head's in it, man. Locked in Jalin Turner, one of the most dangerous guys in the weight class. Mansur Abdul Malik, listen, man. This was a horrible loss. There's no way to sugarcoat it. There's no way around it. You can't be losing to Dustin Stoltzfus in 2026. And first of all the credit in the world to Dustin Stoltzfus and what a dog he is by being able to kind of survive, eating some big shots, out scrambling Mansur, out grappling him, taking him down, putting him in some bad positions, making him uncomfortable. And Stoltzfus dogged this one out and it felt like he wanted it more, man. It felt like he wanted it more. And while Mansur is the better athlete and more explosive, he just wasn't the better fighter. And that's kind of crazy to say because he's a guy that he was a big favorite coming in. I thought he was going to win this fight by finish, right? And there were moments where he hurt Stoltzfus and it's like, there we go. But then Mansur would drop his hands and he would get clipped. And the signs have been there, right? We've seen him rocked in numerous fights, but kind of gave him a pass against Yusri Bulgaroy, understandably, considering how good Yusri is on the feet. But Outside of that, we've seen him clip before, but I don't know, man. He was getting clipped by some right hands of Stoltzfus and rattled and banged around, and I'm like, that's just not a good sign. And I know Stoltzfus is like one of these guys where he's not particularly great anywhere. He's just kind of solid everywhere, which those can be difficult guys to deal with. They were talking about that on the broadcast, which I agree. But I just feel like Mansur brings more to the table to where you should be able to beat a guy that's a little bit on the slower side, that is just kind of a solid, okay fighter. Like Mansur has some it factor to him in terms of he's explosive. He's got the power. He's got, wrestled at the University of Maryland for crying out loud. And this dude's getting out grappled by Dustin Stoltzfus, man. Stock crushing blow for Mansur, man. No way to sugarcoat it. Stock crushing blow. I don't know where he goes from here. I think he needs to take some time off and work on his game. I like Mansur, but, losing to Belgaroy, one thing. Coming out here losing to Stoltzfus. And I know that Stoltzfus, they've trained together, so they got the inside information, but I felt like part of that was, well, this is a good matchup for Mansur because they know about Dustin's game to where they're like, oh, this is a good fight for Mansur to go out here and bounce back. And to get subbed by Stoltzfus and kind of get melted a little bit by him, not a good look. Great win by Stoltzfus, pulled off the big upset, and Mansur losing in that fashion. I was blown away at the way that this fight played out. I don't know how he lost, man, to be honest. Edson Barboza, Esteban Ribovics. First of all, I mean, legend of the game, Edson Barboza, an OG, an old head that's been around for a really long time, one of the nastiest, strikers the game has ever seen. I mean, I grew up on Edson Barboza, man, as a kid watching this dude highlight reel people with spinning wheel kicks and the nasty Muay Thai striking, the leg kicks, the kicks to the body, and I wish Edson nothing but the best, man. He's an awesome person, an amazing fighter. But I've been saying, in terms of the fighter Edson that we've seen recently, this is a guy, in my opinion, that should not be in a UFC octagon anymore and just shouldn't be fighting anymore, period. And I was saying before that I just don't even know if Edson Barboza would beat guys in leagues outside of the UFC. When you start to get older and you're at this point, to where Edson's at, like a Darren Elkins even. We just saw that against Yadir Devaya. And I'm not saying that this Barboza's like that far, like an Elkins. But the point is, you get to a point where, you have the name value of, we look at that guy of Barboza, the highlight reel, striker. But he's almost at the point where, is he still UFC caliber per se? I'm not trying to disrespect him and say that he would lose in an outside promotion. I'm just saying it's the ghost of Edson. Right? It's not the same guy from a few years ago. Right? I know he landed a couple shots here and there against Ribovics, but, I mean, come on, man. This was one of those things that just felt criminal to book this fight. We knew how this was going to go, right? Like, Ribovics, I don't even think he's that good, right? That was kind of my takeaway from this fight was, I mean, to not finish Barboza in the first round, I mean, I know he kind of almost did at the end, but Barboza has been washed beyond belief for a while now, man. And I've been like, he just really even shouldn't even be in there competing. It's like dangerous at this point because his gas tank isn't there. The durability isn't there. So he has like a good minute or two and then he slows down. And then when that happens, he's just a sitting duck and becomes a heavy bag. And that's not good against these young, dangerous guys, man. You're taking all this damage. You've had a long career to begin with. It becomes dangerous and it's not a game, And this was hard to watch. It was hard to watch. And obviously, a lot of respect from Ribovics, a fan of Barboza, as we basically all are, especially if you're a big fan of striking. It's going to be fun to fade Ribovics moving forward, right? And I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm not impressed with Ribovics, man. I'm just not. I don't know. I just, he swings and ducks and throws these big wild punches. There's not a lot of technical stuff going on from Ribovics, in my opinion. He just kind of gets in there and slugs. The chin rises up in the air every time he throws something. Every time he's moving forward and he's throwing, the chin sticks up in the air. I don't know. I think Ribovics is fun to watch. Don't get me wrong. I know he had the crazy war with Daniel Zohuber. I get it. I mean, that hasn't aged well at all either. Has no ground game. We saw that against Gamrot. And I just think he's just a brawler that likes to move forward and does have some solid technique here and there, but I don't know, man. And I know he still got the second round stoppage. I get it. So I'm being hard on him when he still went out here and looked good, but did he, though? I think he leaves a lot of holes in his game, man. I just don't think he's as good as maybe we all thought at one point. I thought Ribovics was solid, but he's got a lot of holes in his game. Loads up on shots, leaves a lot of openings. This was more about the fact that Barboza is way over the hill, man, and I just feel like he shouldn't have been in there at this point. So I'm happy he's retiring. Wish him nothing but the best. It sucks when you see guys that you're a big fan of, and you're like, man, this guy just... it's like, maybe he still kind of has it. Maybe we'll see. Another one, okay. But it's been like, nah, it's been a problem for a while now, in my opinion, for Barboza. And it was tough to watch. I know he landed some good shots here and there, but Ribovics' pressure, he's the younger fighter, more explosive at this point. Doesn't hit that hard, but was able to put the pressure on Barboza, land some good shots, and get him out of there. But I just think Esteban's underwhelming, in my opinion. Legend in Barboza, man. One of my favorite strikers to watch. It's sad to see him retire, but by the same token, and I'm happy he is because, yeah, it's that time, in my opinion. Chidi and Joe versus Joel Alvarez. This was a disgraceful performance by Joel Alvarez. It really just felt like he showed up for a check or something. I don't know what his game plan was, but first of all, shout out to Chidi, Bang Bang Man. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. There is no one like me. Mind your manners. Chidi and Joe just picked him apart and just outstruck him. I mean, he made it look easy. I mean, Joe Alvarez looked awful. And my question is Joe Alvarez even good at this point? Was he just a weight bully, cutting all that weight going down to 55 to frame mog people, and now he comes up to 170? He's just not going to have anything for these guys. And I like Joe Alvarez. I'm a fan of him, man. I've been high on Joe Alvarez, talking about how dangerous this guy is on the feet, and striking defense is awful, which we got to see on display, and I've been saying that. He's an offensive, base striker with a nasty submission game, or if you shoot on him, or he hurts you, he could hop on a limb and get you out of there. I know he took it on shorter notice, man, but he looked terrible. I mean, just standing directly in front of Chidi and Joe, how do you think you're going to win that fight? I mean, that's literally it's almost like you told Joel the one thing you can't do to, if you want a chance in this fight, he did. Don't stand in front of Chidi. And what did Joel do? He's like, noted, I'm just going to stand in front of him, dog. Didn't even attempt any takedowns. And I know his wrestling isn't good, but still, I mean, Chidi and Joe, you got to put a pace on him to get him tired because we've seen his gas tank isn't very good. And you got to find a way to get him to the ground and you can submit him easily. Joe Alvarez has the skills to be able to submit him, but he didn't even try. Was standing at range, just getting his legs obliterated, kicked to the body, picked apart. I mean, this was just a Muay Thai clinic put on by Chidi and Joe. He just coasted to a victory, man. Joe Alvarez looked awful in this fight. It was I don't know what I was, right? A pathetic, I'm lost for words, man. I actually was watching this. I'm like, I can't believe what I just saw. Great performance by Chidi and Joe, but also an awful game plan and showing from Joe Alvarez to where I'm really questioning Alvarez moving forward. I know Chidi's very good on the feet, but I like Joe Alvarez. I'm a fan. That was a hard watch. It was a very hard watch. I thought he looked terrible. Felt like he just didn't even show up to fight or something. I don't know. It was a very weird vibe that I got from Alvarez. In there, and a great performance by Chidi and Joe, man. He's very, very dangerous. And if you're going to play that game with him, there's not a lot of guys that could deal with Chidi in that realm. If you're just going to strike with him in a very slow pace, you go, I go, tit for tat, Chidi's going to win that more often than not. Joe Alvarez found out the hard way. It's going to be bad if you're going to go out there and have a tit for tat battle with Chidi and Joe. What a dumb game plan by Joe Alvarez. I couldn't believe what I was watching. Charles Johnson, Eduardo Chapelin. We picked Charles Johnson to win this fight, and he surprised us with a submission in round 3. Now, I'm not surprised that Charles Johnson got a round 3 finish, right? I thought it would be a knockout, if anything. But the reality is Charles Johnson's one of the most dangerous third round fighters ever, right? Look at what he was able to do against Kavanaugh. How he's haunted a lot of these dangerous up-and-coming fighters is, boy, that third round comes around. These guys have success early. In the first round, they usually win the first. The second round's kind of competitive. You can see the tide starting to turn, and then round 3, these guys are slowing down, and then Johnson puts it on them and gets them out of there. The Scottish Twister getting Eduardo out of there. I mean, shout out to Chapelin for stepping in on short notice, right? This was a catch weight. And that's a tough, stepping in here, right? Against Charles Johnson, a crafty guy who's been around for forever, who was actually preparing for a fight, was supposed to fight Ochoa. And then now you have Chapelin who's stepping in on short notice. And yeah, he's training all the time, but having to cut the weight, and it's a tough ask. So hopefully they give Eduardo another shot because he hurt Johnson bad, almost knocked him out. I thought he was going to actually get the KO. And then when he was trying to get the finish, I'm like, ooh, he's going to slow down now, right? He was emptying out the tank a little bit, trying to get him out of there. Couldn't do it. Then he started to slow down. Johnson was going to the body with the teeps, playing the range game, sticking and moving, and then was eventually able to get to that Scottish Twister, set him up beautifully, and got him out of there. A crafty Charles Johnson performance to go out here and beat Eduardo, and going out here and getting finished in the third round by Johnson. Who knows? Maybe Eduardo is going to be a top contender at some point in this division. Great performance by Johnson, and a big victory for him. Donte Johnson, Eric McConico. Listen, the Eric McConico, man, don't get rid of this guy. We know the legend of Eric McConico. The reality was, I thought McConico was the more technical fighter, but all it would take is one shot from Donte Johnson. And what's crazy about this fight, Donte Johnson looked awful at the start of it. Winding up, throwing big, wild, looping punches, and then he got stung by Eric. And then it's almost like it settled him into the fight and reminded Johnson of how to be technical. And then, boom, he threw a straight left hand down the middle and slept Macahdo badly with a left hand, put him out. And then followed up with some nasty ground and pound and then clipped the referee. Right? That was wild, man. But it was nuts because Eric clipped him, stung him, and then it's like Johnson, you could see him kind of skating around, trying to get his bearings back. And then he fought technical and knocked him out. It's like, that's all you got to do, man. You're super explosive and very athletic. Just fight with some technique. Stop loading up and creating these windows for you to be countered. So, Donte Johnson, we picked him to win. I said after that Brundage performance, I'm like, I'm kind of out on this guy, man. But then I pulled it back a little bit because I'm like, he is young. You know, I was a little bit frustrated with him. Even though he did beat Brundage, it was like, did he though, right? It was really competitive. He left, his footwork was horrible. Understandably, right? I feel like understandably I felt that way, right? I mean, I feel like a lot of people did. His footwork was horrible. He didn't look like a professional fighter to be on the feet in that fight. In this one, much better. Much better, settled in, landed a big shot, got McConico out of there. McConico will bounce back, man. The reality is if he gets it clean, he's going out. And Donte Johnson, very explosive, big win for him. Vicente Luque, Tresean Gore, we got this one wrong. I thought Luque would be able to, get the job done, but it was kind of competitive in moments, but it was just really the fact that Tresean Gore at this point, it just feels like he wanted it more. And then Luque gassed himself out trying to get the darts. I don't know how that didn't, end up submitting, how he didn't end up submitting Gore there. I was like, oh, that's Luque's best move. Gore's done. We got the pick right, and then he didn't submit him, and then Luque got tired, and I'm like, oh, it's over. And it was competitive, to be fair, but outside of that, I mean, Luque landed some good shots on the feet. It was kind of exactly what I thought. Luque would land some good shots. Gore would shoot a desperation takedown. Luque would lock in a Darce, and I'm like, boom! It's playing out how we thought. And then Luque got tired, couldn't get the submission. Gore put it on him, and listen, Tresean Gore beating Bokoyev the way he did, going out here getting a big win over a name in Luque, who's not in his prime anymore, but still decent. Luque showed up to fight. It felt like he was going to almost melt at that one point when he didn't get the submission. Gore was landing, some good shots, threatening with some submissions, an arm triangle. Thought he was going to get it. Luque battled through, fought to the very end. I thought that this was a pretty solid back and forth fight and one that Tresean Gore was just a step ahead. Good win for Gore, man. Rafael Tobias versus Lucas Fernando. Listen, man, we were all about Lucas Fernando coming into this, and I said, look, don't take that loss to Cesar Almeida on DWCS. And I mean, Cesar Almeida at that point in time especially, super high-level striker. Lucas Fernando, this guy's going to be a problem in this division, man. That is some of the cleanest and sharpest striking that I've seen in the UFC, period. Like, I don't know why a lot of fighters are not watching the way that he just fought in that fight saying, man, maybe I could take some things from his game. And I know that he's new on the block in the UFC, but the way this guy rips the left hook to the body, the jab is straight, the right hand follows beautifully down the middle, the leg kicks there's like no telegraph, whipping him to the body. That question mark kick that almost landed was nasty. Whippy high kicks, beautiful footwork. His takedown defense was on point. And that was really Tobias's path to victory, was to get the fight to the floor. He looked bigger than Fernando, but he was so much slower. And I think we said Fernando actually by a round 3 KO to kind of pick his shots, break Tobias down, and then he threw the knee to the body. And I was screaming at the TV. I'm like, go to the body. He didn't really follow up with it in the second round and then went back to it in the third round, the knee to the body, put Tobias down, and was able to get him out of there. Lucas Fernando is going to be a problem in this weight class, man, especially if that takedown defense has improved on the feet. Whoo! He looked elite. Sharp, textbook. Everything comes from where it's supposed to. Sharp, accurate, power, speed, great movement. Lucas Fernando looking like the real deal. Since losing to Almeida, he had moments in that fight. Almeida, super high-level striker, especially at the time when Almeida was, still kind of primed per se. And then rattling off some wins in LFA, double champ, I believe, over there or something like that. I mean, he's been impressive, man. His striking's nasty. Great win, great performance. That was a clinic. Neil Magny, Ramiz Brahimaj. I should have just picked Neil Magny, but I literally said it's either Ramiz by a submission or he'll gas and Magny will get him out of there, and that's what happened, right? So it's kind of a double prediction in a way. Ramiz Brahimaj, it's kind of embarrassing that you're a professional fighter and you don't have cardio to go past 5 minutes. I don't know how this can be your job and you're a professional and you don't have enough gas to go at least 10 minutes. I I don't know, man. Ramiz Brahimaj, to me, also melted. I could see his body language starting to shift. The hand started to drop. He's just kind of folding into the fence. And then Magny just kind of just was like, all right, I'm just going to put you away now. And that's what happened. Magny got dominated early. Ramiz could not get to a dominant position to find a submission, or could not get to an area to find a submission. Magny did enough to defend, and I thought Ramiz, he's got good submission skills. Even though I don't think he's elite, he could expose some of the holes in Magny's ground game, which, we saw Jake Matthews even do it, right? We saw Amasa, very high-level guys. I know Magny only loses to the elite of the elite, but stylistically, I thought that this was winnable for Ramiz. But we all know Ramiz, zero gas tank, slowed down. Magny, cockroach in his way, being that crafty son of a gun. Welcome to that kind of Magny-verse, so to speak. Magny's world. We're all just living in it. Where you get tired, man, the 39-year-old will find a way to put it on you, and just it won't look super good, but he'll just find a way to get you out of there. Big win for Neil Magny, man, and kind of embarrassing from Brahimaj to just gas out like that over and over and over again. I don't get it. Jeremiah Wells, Mikdabek Orolbai. This was a devastating way to start the night, man, and this is how I knew the card we were in for it. I thought Orolbai was maybe up 2-0, right? Wells landed some good shots. I think it was the first round. He stung Orolbai pretty bad. Orolbai's striking defense is bad. And I know from the Robetsky fight, it was kind of a war, so maybe I overlooked it a little bit. But, Jeremiah Wells in Philly, he just wasn't losing, man. Landed some big shots on the feet, and I overlooked Jeremiah Wells here. I feel like basically everybody did. I feel like everyone on planet Earth thought Orolbai was going to win this fight. And he should have won this fight. And honestly, it's a bad look, in my opinion, that Orolbai lost to Jeremiah Wells, a 39-year-old Jeremiah Wells who was like, it felt like he was thinking about retirement and now not, or I don't know what's going on. What's a top 15 guy? I don't know. Orolbai was controlling him, winning minutes, landing some shots here and there, and then got clubbed on the feet because his striking defense is not good, does not move his head, got hit with some big clubbing shots from Wells. They kind of shot in, and then that little ninja choke, man, little guillotine, and Wells was able to put him away. These grapplers, man, when you get stung, you can't just shoot in like that, And, that was sad seeing, the Ice Age man, guy that came out of a block of ice and just thawed and, from the Ice Age, hunting woolly mammoths and saber-tooths. Turns out maybe that is not the best base for MMA. Going out here and losing to a 39-year-old Jeremiah Wells, I thought this was a step down in competition compared to Tafik Masayev and a lot of the other guys that Orolbai was fighting. But MMA for you. Anything can happen, right? Clearly, by the way that this played out. I don't think it's a good look for Orolbai losing this fight personally. But shout out to Wells, bald man, in Philly, put on a good performance, needed to get the finish, willed himself to a victory, put on some good, showed some good takedown defense, was able to scramble, get back to the feet, landed the bigger shots, clearly had the power advantage, landed the better shots, stung him. Orolbai tried to close him down, boom, submitted him, and got him out of there. Orolbai's got some things to clean up on the feet. That was sad to see Orolbai, man. Orolbai lose, man. That was a tough one. And a rough way to start the night, and one that I feel like nobody saw coming. That was pretty devastating. So, yeah. In fact, Orolbai will not send Jeremiah Wells on his way. If you know, you know. All right. So that's my thoughts on UFC 330. Fun card. Lots of upsets for the most part. Quite a few upsets. The main event went pretty much how we were anticipating. High-level fight, back and forth, the X's and O's standpoint. Jalin Turner back in the win column. Himmy Turner. Mackenzie Dern dominating like we kind of expected, and had some fun moments all across the board. Charles Johnson, Neil Magny being crafty vets of the game. If you guys enjoyed this video, do me a favor, give it a like. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you do not miss an upload. I would greatly appreciate it. I will see you next time.